So I'd like to call the meeting to order of the UAB workshop. Robin, if you can do the roll call, please.
Okay. Member Rockwell,
Here.
Member Covey,
Here.
Member Hall,
Here.
Mayor Jacobson,
Here.
and all other members are absent.
All right, now we're to the adoption of the agenda. We had a request from staff to reverse the order to give staff a chance to go home. DRU operational update first. So I would entertain any motion. So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. So, we are up to the GRU operational plan update.
All right, so yeah, Mr. Chair, at the previous workshop, we had staff kind of go through detail on the topics of energy supply and water and wastewater. And tonight, the purpose is to do the same thing with customer support services as well as energy delivery. Again, the idea here is we want to go through it in detail, get feedback from the UAB of how to improve or what things to change. And then in the future, we're not going to go through these in detail. It's going to be more of a consumable product for you and for you, the board, and then ask questions as needed on a quarterly basis. So with that, I was going to ask Kenzan Hutchinson to come up and basically go through he's the Chief Customer Officer. He'll go through the customer support services portion of the report. Yeah, you can sit at the microphone. And just to give you a quick, so this is the beginning of the report. So again, it's a quarterly report. This represents April, May, June of 2022. The sections you see here are the 5 major sections that are going to be in the report. And again, Kenzan is going to address the first one, which is customer operations.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Am I good?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair and board. Like Mr. Cunningham stated that I'll be going through customer support services, quarterly operational report.
Robin, is there a secret to advancing the slides?
I'm gonna get something, but that was supposed to work. Kids on it.
Okay. All right. So just to give a few highlights of what we've been working on over the last, not necessarily just these last 3 months, but up until this point, some of the key points of what we've been working on. And so one of the things we worked on was executing a speech analytics software. And what that is to be able to really evaluate the calls that are coming in from our customers. And so what currently right now, I think we average somewhere around about a little over 100 to 200 QA, QC type of evaluations on our calls. And so with this new speech analytics, once we get it up and running, this will help us be able to analyze 100% of our calls. And what that does is it helps us identify if there's voices being raised extremely high, we can identify those calls, and also we'll be able to identify certain words that is not necessarily what we call high world-class customer service. So we'll be able to identify that, and so that the actual contract of that is really moving forward, and so I'm really excited about that for us as customer support services. Also, we're looking to upgrade our Inova payment software system, and this is where it's like the hub for us, where all our different payment options are pointing to that software. And then that is what uploads into SAP, which is our CIS, which is our customer information system. And so we're moving from on-premise to actually in the cloud. And that'll help us with all of our updates and upgrades to make sure that we're staying in compliance with those things and make sure that we're really secure as it relates to our software system. In addition to that, just other things that we've been excited about. And of course, everyone knows that we've been dealing with customers a little upset. I won't say a lot, but a little upset about utility bills. And so what we've been trying to do as an organization, as city as a whole, but partnering with general government, is to really be more out in the community, to educating our customers as much as possible, but also pointing to different resources that's beneficial for them to really navigate through these treacherous times. And so a few things we've done is we've done community relation, GRU in the neighborhoods, which we had one in April and also May 31st. And also we had a city services fair, June 25th is where we just really shared some of the services that we provide as a utility. And that was one of the additional things that we partner with general government on to share with our customers. But also back in May, we had Community Action Agency Utility Assistant Venue is where we hosted 2 days where customers can come in and we would help through the money that was available through CAA to help assist customers. So we hosted that here, and I'll go through some numbers a little bit later in the slide to kind of show how many customers we assisted through that program and also how much money we spent to really help assist customers during this time. And so that
Ken's on real quick, and just for those of you who are newer on this, workshops are less formal, so feel free to jump in. One of the nice things about workshops, the speech analytics, it sounds like that's mainly focused towards GRU employees to make sure they're not saying anything inappropriate.
Well, both. We'll be able to identify both, but it's really to really help us improve the way we work with our customers. So customer experience.
I guess that's where my question was going, is to the other side, because I assume that there's abuse happening
Right.
from the customers, that you guys could maybe have systems to help identify and processes.
Right. And so, Mr. Chair, so one of the things that I think is beneficial is, as you mentioned, it will be able to pick up on both sides. And so one of the things that I think is important is to see how we can prevent some of those things. And so if it's information that we can mention up front, maybe the customer doesn't get to that point. And so it helps on both sides. But yes, it does identify those.
Good, thank you.
And so just some of the call data that's out there that I kind of wanted to go over and somewhat just state what our service levels are and how we're doing as it relates to our service levels. And so right here, it's our average speed of answer. And this is how long it takes for a customer to talk to a human per se, as it navigates through our IVR system. And so our residential goal is 5 minutes. You can kind of see that we're kind of trending at the 12-minute mark. It's not ideal. I'm not even really impressed with the fact that it's 5 minutes. I really want to try to get it down to a lot less than that, but it's kind of where we are as it relates to the utility. And with the 12-minute, where we are at this current moment, well, not even where we are at this current moment, but for the last quarter, it's just been real difficult, keeping talent. And so really getting customer service reps trained. And as they're trained, we'll be able to navigate through the calls a lot faster. And so currently right now in this quarter, we're at 12 minutes and 30 seconds for us to be able to see a customer. Also from a non-res standpoint, which is our business customers, our goals are 3 minutes. We're pretty close to that one because most of our senior employees who are CSRs, we're at 3 minutes and 33 seconds. Those are the ones who are handling the business calls. And so we're able to kind of keep it a little bit closer to that, but I still want to see improvement in that area as well. Also, we're fortunate enough to have a residential callback queue, which our goal is to answer calls within 1 hour. So if a customer calls in and, they don't want to wait 20 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever the case may be, they can request a call back and we will call them back. And so we've been trending around a 35-minute mark. And so we have been reaching that goal.
I was wondering, when you answer a call, can you break down what they're on? I guess is on rates. And there's other issues that pop up too?
Right. So the type of calls we get, some customers, it varies, but we do move-ins and move-outs. Customers wanting to start service or move
Okay.
out of service
Yeah.
territory.
Okay.
Some are high bill complaints.
Yeah.
Just want to understand why the bills are what they are.
Yes.
Some calls are, it could be just they understand what their bills are, but may need a little bit more time to pay their bill.
Yeah.
So it varies. Some may call about a cat in the yard or a tree or whatever the case is.
Okay.
But it varies across
Yeah.
the board, even as it relates to solid waste. Sometimes they're calling about those different charges.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
And just so I can make sure I understand the definition, the actual average speed of answer is when they actually get through all the robots and everything and get to an actual person.
That's correct.
Okay. I understand where you are, and I sympathize with you because you've been under a lot of issues for both staffing and what do you call it, dealing with probably a CIS system that probably does not give you everything you need. But as you know, I work for a different utility, and their standard was you had to answer 95% of the calls in 45 seconds, which is, if you look at it like this, is a curve that looks like that. So that means that you would actually answer 80% of the calls in 20 seconds. So I guess the question I would ask is, and the reason, and by the way, when I did this, I did all the queuing analysis. So I knew how many calls were coming in. I knew how long the calls lasted. What do you call it? Averages like that. I assume, what do you call it? No more than 2% busies. Okay, because some people knew the trick. You just pull the trunks out. What do you call it? You can answer all the calls. Yeah. Put that one in your back pocket. So the question really boils down to is where do you think you're going to end up in something like this? I know these are 5 minutes. Have you done a customer survey or gone out to consultants and asked what do they think in terms of a 5-minute goal?
So we've been out and we've benchmarked between other utilities, and we're kind of unique with the type of services that we have. We have 5 services, and so it's not always easy to benchmark with the different services.
Okay, all right. Okay, now I'm getting you. Okay, so they're all packed together in there, and there's no way to bifurcate those down to knowing what it is for each type of service.
Well, so one of the plans that we do have is to, one, be able to navigate through our system, which will be able to speed up the amount of calls we're receiving. This current system that we have, it's a little difficult to navigate through, which means that it takes us a lot longer to handle those calls, which means that average speed of answer would actually be a little bit longer. So our plan is, hopefully with the newer system in place, being able to train people a lot faster, we'll have more expertise in place to be able to see what we can actually do. But the fact that our system is different than a lot of other utilities, and the difference in the services that we have, sometimes it's really hard to say it should be exactly what this is. But we have tested with, and I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but we have benchmarked against other utilities. It's just hard to really pinpoint it should be exactly this.
And you only use one telephone number?
Yes.
Okay. Has anybody ever suggested to you having more than one telephone number?
Well, so I don't think it's a telephone issue, number issue, just because.
Well, I mean, per service.
Well, so I guess
Power service having one, water having another.
Yeah, so we can create different queues. So even having one phone number, we can do different queues. The problem is our struggle would be is making sure that everybody's trained on everything, because one of the difficulties that we're having is one amount of resources. And then if we just slot, because we learn everything all at the same time. And so it's more efficient for us to be able to serve anybody who calls versus just one person being trained up on just water, one person trained up on gas, one person trained up on electricity.
Is your thought that you'd have more data to understand what kind of calls are coming in, or more efficiency in addressing?
Probably both, because if you knew what calls were coming in and you had certain reps, what do you call it, that took water versus something else, you could end up, what do you call it, training a specific staff to a specific target.
Yeah, so let me mention this. So, Mr. Chair, so we do have the IVR broken down to where it says if you have a question about your bill, if you want to do a move in, if you want to do a move out, because typically if someone's doing a move in, they're not just moving in water, they're moving in electric, gas, and water if they have all those services. And so we have the queue broken down into what it is that they're calling for, but we just don't have it broken down by service.
Okay.
And I was just going to say, as opposed to an FP&L or someone who's very large, we're relatively small. And so, if we had trained people just on electrical and just, so if you got a bunch of calls in one area, they wouldn't be able to shift. So I think.
What is the total number of reps you have?
Well, we can house 24 in the actual call center with 4 supervisors that help us manage that.
So relatively small. I mean, compared to FP&L, how much have thousands or something. And I was thinking some of it is it's money. I'm sure you guys could get that number down if you spent more money on it. And so it's trying to find the right balance. And I'm thinking right now, I'm sure you're getting a huge increase in calls of people saying, why is my bill so high? And as someone who talks to you about bills, I truly feel for you guys.
Yes.
I'm sitting there at their table looking at their GRU bill and explaining, here's why. Okay, this percentage of it is because of the cost of natural gas has gone up. This percent is because it was especially hot July. This percent is and they're fighting me. And I'm trying to sell them an alternative. I really feel for you guys, because that's a tough job. But one question I have was, how much do you rebalance? Do you say, I'm looking at the number where, okay, you're ahead of your goal on res callback. Do you start to look at that and say, well, okay, we could slow down the res callback and be picking up, the incoming calls a little faster? Do you kind of look at that to decide?
Yeah, we try to do that. But it's sometimes challenging when you have a skill set. So when you're looking at non-res, with that skill set, we may have more of those. So we need to make sure that we keep those customers, those reps available for those non-res customers who call in.
I was just looking at like the res callback, you're almost half of your goal, or twice as good as your goal, basically. Could some of those people, can you kind of,
so let me share kind of how the queue works, because I think that would help. So if a customer calls in a residential queue, we have people that most of all of our CSRs are they're allocated to residential. But if someone goes in the callback, it just goes based on priority, kind of where they fall out at. So if they called in at whatever time, it literally, they keep their place in line in so many words.
Right.
So,
Okay.
So it's a little difficult to kind of transition between the two.
Let me jump in and add a few things, like kind of the talk straight part of this is we're having a lot of turnover in customer service. It's a very difficult time. Customers aren't always the kindest as they call in. And so the idea of kind of creating more efficiency and like getting people specialized, one of the challenges are you spend that much time training and then they may not be here in a period of time. And so we're trying to stay staffed up. We're trying to figure out how to better retain some of those employees, which will lead to more efficiency. The other thing is, we have the automated metering infrastructure project coming, which in the longer run will provide more information to customers that they now might be calling us about. They may have better information available directly so that could reduce calls. And so we're putting, some of these things are going into place. We're trying to improve those efficiencies. And I think over time, we're going to see some of that. Kanzan also just mentioned the billing system. So as the billing system, scheduled to go live in February, there'll be efficiencies built into that will bring these down. And so our intent on sharing this is to be able to show that we're able to start reducing some of these times and these averages over the next year or 2 years. And our intent is to show this relative to maybe year to date or previous quarter or something like that, so that you all can get a snapshot, just like we are, that we are moving in the right direction or we're not.
And I mean,
Just,
just
do
for, I'm
you
saying,
have
these look
any
like,
sense of whether people prefer to be called back?
It depends on how long the waits are.
Well, do you give them a within 10 minutes or 15
We say within an hour.
or within an hour?
Right.
And do you have a sense of how many people choose that?
I mean, I don't have those numbers.
No, I'm just saying, I just thought you might know. Yeah.
Not off the
No?
top of my head, I don't. It just depends on the day and how long the waits are. It determines the volume.
I was just, from where I sit, these don't look like bad number. I mean, knowing that this is an unusually hard time and everything else. I mean, if you were talking an hour wait for someone on the phone, I mean, I think this is very commendable.
Did you ever call Microsoft?
Yeah.
Now, the next quarter might be more challenging because of rush.
Right.
So that the quarter we're currently in now, not only do we have the high bills and some of the concerns there, we also have rush, which is, transitory.
Yeah.
We're a very transitory community and a bunch of move in, moves out, move out. And so these numbers probably in the next quarter will trend higher than what we're seeing here.
Definitely will.
So you want to go to average handle time?
All right. So average handle time is our current goal is 6 minutes, and for residential, it's taking us somewhere around about 8 minutes and 43 seconds. Also for business, it's 6 minutes, and those are a little bit more in depth. And so some of those calls are taking us a little bit longer to actually handle those calls, but I do feel like we're moving pretty swiftly through those calls, especially with accuracy. We don't want to rush through those calls and make sure that it's a first call resolution type of deal. And so that's where we're navigating with that. Residential callback, same 6 minutes and 31 seconds. And then also for non-res callbacks, we get those around about 12 minutes and 17 seconds. Call volume, this is, as Mr. Cunningham has mentioned, this is last quarter. And so you'll see we had approximately 42,000 calls over the last quarter. And I do want to mention these are calls actually handled. Typically we average somewhere around the 40 or 50,000 calls a month. And our IVR self-serve system is kind of really helping assist those customers. So we're not necessarily having to communicate with them with the human body. But business, we've had 5,822 over this last quarter, 9,000 residential callbacks, and that's your volume right there. And then also callback non-res is 27. So we don't really get a lot of those calls because our numbers are pretty good as it relates to those calls.
Just quick feed. It's really not helpful to show us both average per month and then total. It's just a multiple of 3.
I just wrote that down. I agree.
I agree. All right, so this next piece here is just showing some of the assistance that we've been able to give customers through this process over this last quarter. And so ERAP, which stands for Emergency Rental Assistance Program, we distributed, helped facilitate $387,000 for customers who may having difficulties paying their utilities. Also, Our Florida, which is a program where the Florida Department of Children and Families funding is provided by the Federal Emergency Rental Assistance Program. And so we assisted 451 customers, and we just helped facilitate $183,000. And then also we utilize social service agencies, and that's like your Catholic Charities, Salvation Army, and Gainesville Community Ministry, and also Central Florida Community Action Agency, and that amount, we spent, we helped facilitate $607,000. And the part that I just like to state across the board, which means over these last 3 months, we helped distribute over $1 million to our customers, which is very big, especially where we are now. Next quarter year, of course, you'll notice that we spent a lot more just because there was still funding out there available for us to distribute to our customers. Next thing is disconnects. Of course, we're not in the business of doing disconnects, but we have had disconnects. And so you'll see over those last 3 quarters, last quarter, we had 3,000 disconnects. I do want to state this. So this averages about 1,150-ish. If you look at that, it's below what our average is for the year. So I don't say we're doing good by having disconnects, but it's trending about a little bit less than normal. The next one, and then the average disconnect. So that's our average disconnect amount. Now, I do want to also mention what this is. So with disconnects, these are orders that are generated, but also where a customer may have made a payment before we got to them while we're out in the field, we would accept that, but it still showed up as a disconnect order. So all these may not have been disconnected, but it's just a disconnect order that came out for our customers. Next thing is the customer experience. And this is where we kind of reach out to our customer, you know, the voice of the customer. And so here we have 3 different categories. We have our relationship surveys where we just send out like 50,000 emails for customers, just trying to get a pulse on where we are with them. And so with that, just in general, we landed at a 2.9, where it can be customers saying, well, I'm upset with you all about the way you all service, your rates. I mean, we get it all across the board, just seeing how they feel about us as a whole. So that's a broad email that goes out. Then the next one is a transactional survey. And it's where a customer had interaction with one of our employees. And they can be calling upset about a utility bill or questions about anything as it relates to their service. And this one, we fell out at a 3.8. Our goal is a 4.0. And so this is, it really shows, if you look at the picture, without any interaction with us, they're at a 2.9, but having interactions with us, you can kind of look to see, well, that we fare out pretty well with them. And then also lastly, overall CSAT score is at 3.5. A lot of room for improvement with that, but you know, of course, it's difficult to improve that. Doesn't matter how good the service is if people are really just upset about utility bills.
Kinson, have you ever asked the question, and this is coming from background with Deming, was the customer satisfied with the transaction?
That goes out in a
What I'm
transaction.
saying is, was satisfied, what number was satisfied? 1, 2, 3, 4?
So 3.
Huh?
So 3.
3. Okay. Well, you might want to think about counting the number of or percentage of customers that actually said they were at least satisfied.
Yeah.
That's an important number.
So we'd have the data to be able to do that, yeah.
That's the cutoff point.
So how do you separate out satisfaction with their interaction with GRU, with their fit, whatever it is?
So it depends on the call. So what we do is if they got what they needed, I mean, it's going to vary. So if you think about it, it depends on the customer. A customer, it doesn't matter if they got the information that we needed, because one of the questions we'll ask is, did they get the answer that they were looking for? They would say no. We would say, is there something that we need to give you a call back? They may say no, but then at the end, were you satisfied? It would still be either no, but depending upon how they felt about the response that they got. Okay. So this next one is just talking about different bill adjustments. And this is just showing where we may have had to give credits back due to an issue that the bill may not have been corrected, or the bill was late, or if a customer, we created some type of undue hardships with our customers, then we try to make it right. Sometimes customers may have been charged inadvertently or implausible read, where the read was lower than what it should have been or higher than what it was. And so we try to adjust based on that. And so this is just showing a few numbers as it relates to billing adjustments and credits. Also, the other part to this is, so invoices generated, we had 228,000 bills generated. And then also we had where it says 87,000 e-bills generated. We are pushing to increase e-bills. Of course, it saves if we're not printing bills and mailing bills. And so every so often, at least every year, once or twice a year, we run some type of campaign to increase our e-bill participation.
So I was just going to jump in, on the billing adjustments, I'm not sure the total for the board, like how advantageous it is to track that. But the e-bills is something that is really, we want to see over time that increasing. And so that is something we just want to be accountable that we're evaluating strategies, things we can do to increase e-bills, because it could save money for our customers and overall.
Yeah, certainly think of some way to, like even in the bill adjustments to say, well, how much is it costing GRU for making mistakes? I mean, it's one thing, okay, a meter got misread, then you correct it. And there's really no net change, but to be able to say, what could we do better to save, where are there opportunities to save money?
All right. And so this is somewhat of just our electronic piece of where we have where our customers are communicating it to us through email, web. And so over this last quarter, we had 2,000 web move-ins, 1,900 move-outs through the web. Just customer contacts in general, we had 5,000 total moves in for contract accounts. And so what that is customers can move from one place to another, not necessarily just new move-ins. And so we had 9,000, almost 9,900 total move-outs, 9,200. And then the percentage of web move-ins is 27% of our total move-ins.
So it's 27% of
our total move-ins, which means that 27% is done online versus in person or over the phone. And then the last operational update is, first of all, the guy in that burgundy shirt up there, he's serving a mean hamburger up there. So so this is just talking about some of the things that we've done in the community. Just some pictures just to show the group that's constantly out in the field working with our customers, but also, which is a major topic right now, which is LEAP metrics. And so over the quarter, we had total customers served 32 customers through LEAP. And we put $190,000 into those customers' homes over the last 3 months. And
So really are these things that you all are interested in? Do you have comments, feedback? We have some things we need to just kind of clean up on the slides and all that, but if you guys had other information that you think is useful, or if you think this is useful, that's sort of the feedback we were looking for, which obviously we got as we kind of went through it. But if there's anything else, and again, these are metrics that we are utilizing to help drive business, and just if that's something that you all are interested in.
On the right track.
I think it would be interesting to see average daily calls like for each quarter. That might be just to see how it waxes and wanes throughout the year. Might be interesting. Other than that, I think pretty good.
So
It'd probably be more interesting if it was by, even though it's this is a quarterly report, but have it every month and give us a better sense of how many calls come.
We obviously, we have that data and we can show it that way. We kind of went back and forth on whether to show it as a
Well,
quarter or not, but
3 months, I think you would get some of the stuff lost, especially where universities, town here, if there's any fluctuation. In September, that isn't shown in other months. So.
okay, so that's something we can look at, is showing it monthly and seeing some of that seasonality and change.
Yes.
All right, if there aren't any other questions, we'll move on to energy delivery. Mr. Carroll will come up. He is our energy delivery officer, and he'll kind of walk through the highlights and the items just like we did.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and UAB members.
I think it's the other way.
Makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, for the highlights for energy delivery, during the third quarter, we installed two 44 MVA substation transformers. Both of them were at Sugarfoot Substation. And we also made significant relay improvements at those locations. And we also completed the transmission line number 5 relay upgrade project and also installed a dynamic disturbance recorder, or DDR. And we did this at Kelly West Substation. We were able to complete a very complex project on a short schedule due to a unit number 2 cooling tower incident. And we met our NERC requirements for vegetation clearance for our GRU transmission lines. And we also assisted the city of Ocala with storm restoration efforts after a major summer storm knocked out a lot of power for their customers. And from the gas T&D group, we completed several subdivision work in the following locations: Finley Wood, Oakmont Subdivision Phase 5, Grand Oaks Phase 4, and Westgate Publix. Okay, this slide shows reliability. And the first slide at the top is those are our total number of incidents we experienced in the third quarter. And you'll see what we're showing here. We're showing for the third quarter for 4 years, beginning with 2019, 2020, 2021, and 22. And an incident is any disturbance in our system that lasts for 1 minute or more. So if a customer experiences a power outage and the power comes back on within a few seconds, we don't count that as an incident. But if it's out for 1 minute or more or longer, we count that as an incident. As far as customer interruptions go, again, these are quarterly, third quarter numbers for 4 years. And in the this third quarter, we had 229 incidents that led to 25,055 customer interruptions for the third quarter of 2022.
So you're sorry, so an interruption is the customer's impact of an incident?
Yes.
An incident happens and then customers have interruptions.
Yes.
Tony, are these,
Where do
I'm sorry.
brownouts factor into this?
Well, as far as a defined brownout.
The voltage drops below accepted ranges.
So a customer's lights are on, but they're just dimmer than usual. That's not included here. We only count it if the customer's power actually goes out.
From my interactions with customers, and GRU does a very good job of not having, but there are other utilities around here where the people are buying batteries because their compressors are being destroyed by brownouts. I mean, I tell them I'd rather have a blackout than brownout.
Right.
Something I think Jerry should be able to brag about, is the quality of the power.
We have that data. We have data to measure brownouts.
I'm not sure. I'll have to follow up on that. I'll find out. I mean, obviously a customer will call in. They don't happen that often. So if a customer experiences a brownout, they will call in and let us know. And in those cases, it's usually caused by a loose neutral or corroded neutral, where they'll go, one leg goes high, the other leg goes low. And so they're experiencing dim lights in part of the house and bright lights in the other part. And depending on what appliances are running, it switches back and forth.
I've seen some of the more rural utilities, it'll be a tree branch on the line or something like that. And
Right.
that starts to really do some damage.
Tony, what you're describing up here, are these in line with the SAIDI, SAFE, KD definitions, IEEE?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all right, now I'm with you.
Matter of fact, we'll be going over the next slide, I think, is Safety and Sadie and Katie.
Okay.
Is there any way to give us these numbers in ways benchmarked against the industry averages, or some way for us to know, is that a good number or a bad number?
Yes, we can. We have that information available with the state of Florida, all the utilities in Florida, and we can provide that. And we recently had the data, and we toyed with how much information, too much information, and just to give you an idea, in most cases, GRU is in the top quartile compared to other utilities as far as reliability goes. Well, we're not the best, but we're probably the 7th or 8th best with all the utilities as far as reliability goes.
I've seen, what do you call it? I had on the internet, I saw that lineup, and you guys are right in the middle there. I've never been able to get back and find that document where that's on. But you guys are right in the middle, what do you call it, of the group when they talked about all those definitions.
I would just say, just in general, any of these, we're trying to figure out good from bad, basically. So
right.
anything you can give us.
Yep.
You guys know the numbers. We're just looking at them going.
I think that's a great idea. That's how we benchmark.
Okay.
They put smiley faces, frowny faces. That way.
All right, this next slide on reliability is the one at the top is what we call Katie. That's our customer average interruption duration index. And what this tells us is it's measured in minutes, and it represents the average time to restore a customer's power once the customer experiences a power outage. And again, it's quarterly data for the third quarter over a period of 4 years. And that just gives you an idea of, we're doing about the same as we've done the previous last year, and then 3 years ago. System average interruption frequency index, or SAFE. That is our that describes how often the average customer experiences an interruption. The lower the number, the better. Safety can be improved through tree trimming, preventive maintenance, and other methods of lowering number of customers who are interrupted by a power outage. And again, you can see we're having a really good year this year compared to last year and 2019. But we had a better year 4 years ago.
So what does that number mean? If you say, is it for the year, you have a 0.25% chance of an outage, or what does that number mean?
Well, it's an index. And so what you do is you take the number of times a customer has experienced a power interruption that lasts for 1 minute or more. And then for that particular feeder, you divide it by the total number of customers on that feeder.
So is that per quarter?
Yes, this is all quarterly data here. So this would be for the third quarter of this year and the previous 3 years for the third quarter.
So what's the highest? Is that a scale from 0 to 1, or?
It is one keeping everything below 1 is our goal.
What's the highest it could be? I'm just trying to understand the number. I mean, or does this represent, I have a 0.25% chance this quarter of being interrupted as a GRU customer?
I don't think it's a percentage. This is an index, and so it's if you like, we can talk afterwards, and I'll show you the formula, and we'll show you how it's calculated.
IEEE has something about that thing.
Okay, yeah, we can talk. I just, whenever we're seeing that, we're just again trying to
Right.
judge. How big
Now
it is.
that, and I know it's confusing because the other numbers, Katie and Sadie are both duration numbers, and they're based in minutes. But this is an index, and so it's not a measure; it's a ratio of number of frequency of outages divided by number of customers.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Oh, it's not on there, is it? Or did I press the wrong button again? Here it is. Sorry about that. Okay, now here's our Sadie slide, system average interruption duration index. And Sadie describes the average outage duration in minutes for each customer in your service area. The most direct way to improve Sadie is by cutting response time to outages. And so again, this is quarterly data over a 4-year period for the third quarter only. And as you can see, our goal in this area, if I remember correctly, is 59 minutes. And so obviously for the quarter, we're way below that, but I think for the year, we're right at 59 to 60 minutes for the year so far.
So again, for all of those, are you all interested in mostly seeing a comparison against a benchmark, against our goals, or against previous performance?
I mean, I think, yeah, I'd like to see a trend,
Yeah.
see how we're trending, and then against a benchmark. is
But
my
yeah,
interest.
benchmark, if it's benchmark, other electrical industries are
This is them. This is everybody in the state.
okay, yeah.
So yeah, so we can,
All right, well, what I'm looking for is something meaningful.
Right.
To me, that's, and I was thinking about industry, our goal, even goals, where we think we should be, and let us know that'd probably be more interesting right there than a industrial benchmark.
I know that our we used to show that information, but our the manager at our system control, Darko Kovac, he gets very sensitive because and what is sensitive about is accurate. Every utility tracks their reliability numbers just a little bit differently. In other words, utility where I formerly worked at in my previous life, they only counted an outage as an outage if it lasts for 5 minutes or longer. And we're counting anything more than a minute. So it's,
Okay.
you're not always comparing apples with
Or
apples.
what weather event took place.
Right. Some utilities will exempt any major storm that has 10,000 or more customers out, or it costs $50,000 or more to restore the power after the storm left the area. So it's and they won't even count those numbers in their reliability number report. So it's,
we'll try to put up something that kind of contextualizes it so that you can have a comparison.
right.
Thank you.
Okay, this slide is it shows the total excavation damages by root cause, and you can see by looking at the causes up there that the first one, no locate was requested, and the next one's failure to maintain clearance, and that'd be an incident where maybe a dump truck drove under a line with the bed raised. and pulled alignment. And I won't read all of them, but you can see failure to check protective. Gosh, I can't read it. I need to put on my glasses. That's probably something else we could use as larger. Because if I can't see it from here, I'm sure you can't see it from sitting back there.
I can guarantee.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, there's some way to, in the future, to format it.
Okay, we'll work on that. And
Very young group here.
the pie chart down there shows total excavation damages by damaging party. And you can see the majority of these are 85% caused by a contractor. And if I get these wrong, y'all will have to bear with me because I'm colorblind. So, and you can see like 8% is caused by a homeowner and utilities caused by 7%. And it looks like public works and unknown are both 0. For environmental stewardship, we've got incidents listed by cause, and these would be the total number of incidents. And you can see it ranges from vegetation and trees to wildlife.
So it's just what's causing the outage or causing the damage, and this is like the different categories.
Right.
So obviously we can control some of those by doing vegetation management, things of that nature to try to reduce some of those causes.
And this is a picture of some of our energy delivery work group, and GRU has won a RP3 reliability award, which is it basically is a reliable public power provider designation from the American Public Power Association for providing reliable and safe electric service. The RP3 designation, which lasts for 3 years, recognizes public power utilities that demonstrate proficiency in 4 key disciplines: reliability, safety, workforce development, and system improvement. And so most of the people pictured here were people who contributed greatly to us getting that designation. And it lasts for 3 years. And I believe that's the last slide. Yes, it is.
So
One comment I did tell Darko and I had about a 2.5 hour chat. And the one suggestion I made to him when he kind of liked it is some of these things might even be better viewed if they were in a Pareto chart format. Kind of stair stepping it down.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can take 2 periods of time and look at the 2 different Pareto charts. What do you call them? Things jump out at you.
Okay.
Yeah, appreciate it. Any other thoughts or questions? Ideas? So I'm gonna hit one thing real quick. I'm gonna move to safety. So we did pull out safety separately, so you kind of look at the whole utility. And the things that we track, things that we're tracking on safety is, again, for the quarter, looking at injuries that have occurred and in what areas of the utility that occurred in. So you'll notice in this example, both water, wastewater, and energy delivery had a couple of injuries in the third quarter. Mostly those are areas where we're doing a lot of field work. It's not at a fixed site. It's out in the field. It's, excavating. You're out doing work in different areas, doing work at night, things of that nature. And then the other thing we track is sort of miles driven and then collisions. And one of the reasons we put that in that context is, so in this quarter, we drove 200,000 miles. So we did have an accident, but you're driving a lot of miles. And so I'm not making an excuse. We don't want to have any accidents, but the reality is, you're driving a lifetime worth of miles. The accidents do occur and things do happen. And so we have like the summary kind of tells you just a short little description of what those things are, so that we know what they are. And typically what our safety folks are trying to do is just see if there's trends. You know, we having similar things. A couple of years ago, slips, trips, and falls were most of our injuries. And so kind of training up a little bit more on situational awareness related to that. And then the last thing to track is one of the proactive things we do are called safety observations. So it's our employees doing safety observations on other employees within GRU, where they're able to kind of track and notice, you know, things that may be going well or not so well, and it really improves their situational awareness to try to improve that safety culture and awareness of what's going on. And so this is a proactive thing that we try to do in order to get those previous numbers down and trying to reach closer to target zero for safety. So that's kind of how we were thinking about representing the safety side. So again, if you have questions or comments, we can field those now. You can provide them over the next couple of weeks to Robin, and we can incorporate into sort of a final product for the fourth quarter that we'll be doing in October or November period. So with that, do you all have any other thoughts or questions, or we can move on? So Robin, I don't know if you want to move on to the last thing.
Well, she's doing, yeah, just again, anything you do to contextualizing on the safety side. I mean, it's interesting to see, but again, for us, trends, what are, industry averages, anything like that is helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will do that. So with that, do we want to move on to the
Yeah, I think we can't do that.
next topic?
Paretos.
One of the things not to do, that one of our manufacturers does is when they put you on hold, every 5 minutes they come on and tell you, thank you for waiting, feel free to hang up and call back later. For 2 hours, they tell you that every 5 minutes. It is so irritating.
You come back,
Yes, I know.
year by year, you can see the number of problems go down, the number of,
What's that?
They want you to put in your number so they can call you back.
Well, this isn't even leave your number, they just hang up, just hang up.
So what, Mr. Chair, what we had Robin brought up, and she can live type in here, is this is the work plan. Last meeting, you guys were able to pare it down and kind of prioritize things a little bit. And so tonight was really just another opportunity for you all to identify priorities. I can kind of talk through the first couple of items. The IRP item, we're going to bring to the next regular meeting, which is September 14th. We'll be bringing that item. We'll have a presentation talking about really the path forward on the next IRP. The solar item, as you all know, we brought it to you. We have a memo. We've revised that memo and sent it to the chair, Mr. Foltz, for kind of a final look at the language that you all were intending. And with that, the item's kind of done from the UAB's perspective, and we'll be taking that to the city commission. The natural gas rebates question, and Mr. Foltz had some comments on this written to us as well. We are going to bring that to the September 14th meeting. It won't be fully baked. I think we might have a couple of meetings where we talk about this topic, but our intent is to bring it to on the 14th and then potentially follow up with it at the October meeting as well as we have that discussion. Other than that, the other items that are on the list, conservation rebates, environmental justice discussions, and utility boundaries will be something that will be coming in future meetings, and actually going to take a little bit of staff time and focus on resources to bring those items to the group. what would be helpful for us is any additional detail or definition of scope on any of these future items, particularly conservation rebates, environmental justice, and then the EV item, kind of narrowing the scope of what you all are looking for from us so that we can focus resources on that. EV one particularly is really broad. It's just EV. And so having a little more intent from what the board is looking for from staff on that. And then the last thing I'll share is Mr. Foltz also just shared on some of these items, including the EV and environmental justice, might be things that the board, you all members bring some information and do some presentations that can just be to educate one another or provide a little more detail and direction for staff that we can then build from. And so it's really up to you all on how you want to proceed with each of those items. So right now is really a time for you all to have that discussion, add any more detail or direction or intent on some of these items, and then really give the direction to move forward with the plan that we have.
So on the solar curtailment, I just wanted to, because I know Jason's email, he said he hadn't received anything. So that has gone to him.
Robin sent it today.
Okay.
Yes.
You guys think? Well, John, on the EV, well, first I want to say on the IRP, very excited. I think that's probably one of the best places for the UAB to be involved. It's a planning thing. It's a, bring in some expertise, feel like the community has some engagement in that too. On the EV, and this kind of relates to the IRP, and I've been working with staff a little bit on that. We're a little stalled right now, just trying to understand the value of moving power around. And this kind of relates to the IRP and actually the solar curtailment is to understand, for us to understand, the public to understand, kind of what's beneficial to GRU and what's the value if I install batteries, how could GRU make use? What's the value to GRU if I have a battery? Or if I change the peak time, all that kind of stuff change when I charge my car. I was on a Duke website the other day and they give you $10 a month if you'll charge a car at a certain time of day. We're starting to see programs out there. When we talk about time of use, just that kind of stuff. Again, trying to find the balance between giving us what we want and not abusing staff time, but that's kind of the picture of it.
So should GRU entertain the idea of provisioning, what do you call it, charging stations?
Right.
So that was actually in terms of the EVs, something I was thinking about the other day. So I was reading about somewhere, I forget where it was, but they had set up free public charging stations that the city was paying for. And of course, it caused a ruckus that people, why should my taxes pay for somebody else to juice up their car, blah, blah. So they ended up, they're in the process of converting them to pay stations where you can swipe a card. So it got me thinking, we're talking about eliminating some rebates and some what do you call them, plans to try to encourage people to do something. I was wondering if contractors or developers wanted to install, pay charging stations. Is there some kind of incentive we could, or GRU could offer for that, in terms of reduced connection fees or something. So, I just thought it might be an interesting thing to discuss in regards to EVs.
I think that'd be, and then, my personal bias as much as possible, I want to make this budget neutral or budget positive for GRU. Sometimes, because sometimes we've done stuff where we're trying to help the environment or something, but these things, I think there are opportunities I think we could do some back of the envelope calculations on some of those charges. I have my doubts as to whether they pay themselves.
Right.
Because they are expensive. I would love to see tons of them, but don't get me wrong, I'm totally behind that. You could say, is there a long-term value? Is it valuable for GRU? But I think it'd be an interesting calculation for the GRU side to hear. Those chargers are great in ways, but they also, when they're on, they are on. There's some there's some power delivery issues, Jerry.
Yeah, I think so. I think the things that we need to be evaluating with EV charging stations particularly is one is, do we want to be in the business of operating and maintaining the charging station? Because even if we're not, we're selling the power so that, there's an advantage to GRU, regardless if we're the operator of the charging station, GRU and our customers, if we have that. The other thing to think about is our system, what you were just referring to, the design of our distribution system, and can it handle, these places where you'd have these large demands. And then I think the last thing is what you were mentioning, Mr. Chair, which is time of use. And is there an advantage to shift that time of use? So all of those things are pieces that we need to be evaluating, can be something that can be part of the scope of thinking about EVs and us having a recommendation on that. If there's anything else beyond that that is specific, that you all are specifically interested in, like I think members comment on, what about incentivizing a charging station where you can, have that. If anything else like that would be helpful for us to define the scope again of what else we want to evaluate.
When I was at the APPA meeting, they were talking about one session, 1 million EVs by 2025, which, and I was really, I was drawn back. I know I know where one charging station is in Magnolia Park, but trying to cross that giant step of what we're going to have to do, time of usage, demand, which could, I'm not really familiar with the electrical distribution system of this GRU, but I think it would, it has to be, those questions have to be answered. So.
Just, and this is a quick, hopefully quick question. So let's say I want to install a high-speed charging station coming off the interstate. It's going to take 10 megawatts of power. Would I pay for that additional infrastructure to deliver that power?
Well, probably ask Tony in terms of how we would do that analysis. He's saying if you were going to add a charging station that was 10 megawatt charging station, if the improvements were needed to the distribution system, would that be the responsibility of that?
Yes,
Yeah.
because we have a couple of stations, maybe 3 in our service area. And of course, the main one is Tesla. They've got a big one. And we actually were surprised at how much energy they use every month. It's a lot. But we, in the area they're in, it was all underground, and so they paid a nice hefty fee for service. Because we had to serve them with a large 3-phase paramedic transformer and had to pull 3-phase 1,000 MCM aluminum, several hundred feet to get to them. So, but I mean, I don't think I think we figured that their average energy bill probably about $6,000 per month.
I mean, I've watched it tick up. It's not uncommon where I get in my car, as Tesla tells me, you're gonna have a short wait at that charging station. They're all full on a regular basis these days. And at peak, a new charging station will pull 10 megs. Just, it's these numbers, they're getting to be big numbers. I'm just thinking for GRU how we're gonna deal with that stuff. It's gonna be.
Of course, we always do an IRR calculation for any new customers, and depending on what their load is, and we give them credit for the revenue, and then they just pay the excess. The revenue doesn't cover it, and I believe it's a 7-year return of 14%. Does that sound?
I think that's important.
14% in 7 years, I believe, is what, and so if their revenue does not recover the cost to serve them, then they pay the thing.
Oh, okay.
how does that work? I mean, they can't mark up the power at the point of delivery. It's just a straight meter.
They put up the power.
Do they?
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was regulated. They could. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how they get away with it, but yeah, they'll say, oh, yeah, it's 33
So there
cents
can
or-
be a financial benefit to some capitalist who wants to
It's hard.
build a wall charging station.
Not to be bird onto this too long, but I get that question a lot. I want to put in a charging station. I'm gonna make money.
You're not really.
At 30, I mean, when he says a hefty fee to put it in and the cost of those things, I can't imagine how much you would have to charge. I mean,
It's interesting.
it's a loss leader.
I wasn't aware of that.
Well, Barry, can you, can you charge an EV directly from your power wall?
You could, but my car is equivalent to 6 power walls. And then when you say, I mean, that's just a temporary place to put power, you take operating power, but it's I looked at my phone the other day. I used 500 kilowatt hours charging my car last month, and I didn't drive that much. I mean, it's significant, and when these numbers are going to be, and good. I mean, this is good stuff for GRU, it's just manageable.
So, and I think, member Rockwell, like, I think what maybe some of these questions, I don't know the answer to some of these questions, but like we're talking about incentivizing someone to build a charging station. I don't know how much money they're gonna make off of that, and if that really is a venture like that. So those are some of the things we can do. You know, we're in this world now, and there's gonna be a million EVs that we can do a little more research and get some of the answers to questions like that as well.
Well, Tesla charges, don't they? They used to make it as part of the, or when you bought the car, but no more. You pay when you go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, on my car, I paid.
Yeah, what I'm not sure about, like, I know on the water side, like if we have a master meter at an apartment complex, that apartment owner can charge a premium if they sub-meter, but it can't be, they can't make money off of it. They can only cover their costs.
Right.
And so I don't know if there's something similar to this, because if they're making money off of it, and they're moving into a world of that they're a utility provider, and then there's a whole bunch of regulation associated with that. And so, I think those are some of the questions we can answer, which might get us into, well, do we want to be the provider of a charging station, or do we want the, market to do that?
Well, that question has already come up at OCAMIC.
Mhm.
Okay, because the people that move in for a long time, they pay all of your electric bill,
Mhm.
100%.
Yep.
Okay, so people came in, what do you call it, and they said, well, I have my car and I want to charge my car. They put in a charging station for them, what do you call it, at no cost.
Gotcha.
Now it's becoming an issue.
Right.
Okay,
As
as more and more people get those cars. And so who, does the person pay for the charger coming in, or does the rest of the people at OCAMIC pay for that?
That adoption curve gets very interesting. So anything, for, I guess my interest, not to speak for John, the more we can get just the basic fundamentals of what's, where does GRU benefit? What helps and hurts GRU in terms of timing of it, or handling power in different ways.
So I think this is helpful. Again, we're gonna have to, some of this is newer to us, and like figuring out what the evaluation is gonna look like. So let us kind of take that back and figure out when we can allocate the resources to do that, to get more of those answers. And then again, member Fultz mentioned that he may have some information he wants to share from what they learned at APPA and things like that as well. So we'll take that and kind of work on what scope would look like and bring that back to the board.
I was just looking at, I mentioned member Folds to see if there's anything we missed. I think we did the stuff that he brought up, at least in some detail. The energy policy, I'll just mention, that's something we worked very hard on for a number of years, and it's kind of languishing at this point. We'll have to decide at some point whether to pick. I mean, I get more excited about EVs and win-win situations than energy policy. That doesn't make it not important. So, but it is not my job to drive things, but that in the big picture is important. So I don't want to minimize that.
And you have a lot of new members that may not as much part of it. So that's up to you all on how you want to kind of move that forward.
So on this urban boundaries for extension, is there interest in? I know you.
Yeah, well, I'll jump in a little bit. So city commission had a motion for us to bring back basically defining utility boundaries. So like, for instance, water and wastewater doesn't have a utility boundary. Gas does not have a utility boundary. Electric has a negotiated electric territory. City commission has given us a direction to bring back a boundary for those other utilities and the electric, frankly, that would, if we're going to extend utilities outside of those boundaries, it would require city commission approval to do that. So we've struggled with that a little bit. I will say, frankly, one of the challenges with that is that it's hard for us to plan the growth of our system if we don't know whether growth beyond a restricted line is going to happen or not happen. And so what we are working on right now is defining boundaries that are kind of broader, that define what we think is going to be growth in the next 10 to 20 years, so we can plan for that broader area. The intent would be to bring that to the UAB to have that discussion and provide your advice moving forward to the city commission, and then bring that to the city commission with those kind of broader boundaries. So that's kind of where that is. That's really a motion from the commission to get us to kind of move forward with identifying them.
Let me ask you about that, because I know the commission specifically asked us to address this issue. And I guess I'm still not quite clear. Would we be, the people would, come to us with projects and pitch projects to us? Or are we more of an overall policy, or is it a?
So my understanding is you draw a line, and then if there were projects proposed outside of that line, they could not connect to water and sewer or gas until they got approval from the city commission to do that. And so, again, I think the challenge it introduces for us is, so if there's development coming before that, and you're building your lines, typically what you're trying to do is build larger lines to service some future growth, even if it's 10 years out. If we have a line restricting that, it's going to make that planning process a lot more difficult, because we don't know whether we're planning for that or not into the future. And so what we're going to most likely propose is a line that's further out, that captures additional properties beyond where our current service area is, so that we can do better planning of the growth of our system.
What restricts the city in terms of drawing their lines, besides going into another city's?
Yeah, so there's nothing that we don't have any lines right now. So the city commission is looking to put in place a restricted line. And I think the intent is so that they have I will say, at least one commissioner, and as they communicated it, was to have a voice so that we don't have urban sprawl happening. So like drawing a line so that there's not development happening way outside of the system without kind of more concentric development, so that you're reducing urban sprawl. Yeah, I think that was the initial intent of the city commission.
No, we're not talking about changing the city boundaries. We're talking about changing the boundaries of the utilities.
The utility service area.
So in that analysis, like I'm thinking of water in particular, which is much more of a finite resource.
Mhm.
Yeah, how do you? It seems like, GRU needs to come back to us and say, if we get to here, we won't be able to meet those. I mean, is that?
I think that's a part of it. Yeah, I mean, so for the finite resource part, the water supply part of water, there are things you can do once you go beyond, like, for instance, now we have all groundwater. If we to go further beyond our current allocation, there are steps we can take. And so but those are things you need to plan plenty of years in advance, which is why you really want to define a broader service area if that's the intent of the utility to expand to that.
So that sounds like, this topic sounds like something we've been specifically asked to do by the city commission.
Yep.
So when GRU is ready to give a presentation, again, as much clarity as we can get it. Yeah, I think Tim expressed this opinion that I would share is I don't want to have developers doing presentations every month for us and I was trying to wade through their stuff.
Not necessarily. We can avoid it.
Yes.
And also, I mean, there's things to consider. You're gonna draw a line where utilities are gonna stop here. And then you can make them go to the city commission and they can say, no, you can't go past this line. Well, then by right, they may still be able to do whatever density with septic tanks and wells. And so you're not gonna stop development if they really want to develop. But it would be something for people to think about. If they're gonna invest.
And that's something for us, that we have brought up with the city commission is that we're trying to convert septic tanks to centralized sewers. So we want to be careful about putting something in place that would incentivize.
You're just gonna have a bunch of rural ag neighborhoods out there, so.
Okay.
So yeah, that'll be something we'll be initiating and bring back to the UAB.
Okay. Anything else on this topic anyone would like to discuss? With that, I will verify, but I believe we're at the end of our agenda. All right. When is our next meeting, Robin?
The next meeting is the one that we had to reschedule, so it's gonna be September 14th, which is a Wednesday.
Okay, and I will not be here for that, and Jason's been told, so
Yes,
all his.
yeah.
Okay.
Jason said he would be able to arrange a schedule to be here.
Great.
So he can share.
All right, with that, we are adjourned.